Hey everyone, Leo with Dreaming Tree, and welcome to the assembly video for our fantasy floral. Now, as the name suggests, this flower isn't really a representation of any real life flower, but rather it's one that was dreamed up in the Dreaming Tree laboratory, so to speak. So anyway, it's a very simple flower, and off screen, I pre-assembled 4 of the 5 that you'll need, and you can see how beautiful they are. And I will walk you through the assembly of one of them, as well as the actual planter, so we can just jump right into that. Now, in front of me here, we have the 6-sided planter, okay? And we do have 6 of these panels, and 3 of them have little diamonds cut out of those. So you want to make sure that you alternate the placement of these, okay? So on one of them, you'll have 2 solids, 1 diamond, and then the other one, you'll have 2 diamonds and 1 solid. Eventually, when we put it all together, it'll look exactly as intended. Okay, so let's get the glue flowing here, and we're gonna begin by just gluing the panels down first. Now you'll notice on the main structure of the planter, you have a series of little score marks towards the bottom of each of these little square sections. And that is to help you with the placement of these. Now we're going to leave this little area empty up here because we do have another panel that's going to go and wrap around that, okay? But while this is flat, it's always easier to work flat. Let's get these in place. It's a very quick little process. Go easy on the glue here. Just make sure you get it out to the perimeter. Okay, nice and even. Use those little markers to help you. You should have a nice border on both sides as well as the bottom. Okay, it should be even. And again, don't forget to alternate the shapes. Okay, so we go solid, diamond, and so on. So these are, 3D flowers are quite popular in our store, especially because, well, there's a lot of uses for them, aside from the obvious, the home decor aspect of it. They make great gifts, especially for people that are notorious for not keeping plants alive very well, and for those of you that have pets, and you're afraid to, afraid that, especially with my cats, anytime someone sends us flowers, I always sort of cringe because I know that, well, I don't know what the name of the flower is because it never really says unless it's something obvious like a rose. And I just worry about leaving it out for my cats because they're quite curious. And as they say, curiosity killed the cat. And I just don't like the idea of them eating something and getting sick. So this is a great alternative, okay? So I started with the diamond on that one, obviously, because I need everything to alternate. Okay, so just pick out for this, you're gonna pick out a nice little pattern piece. And then also, if you have a nice coordinating pattern, like the one we have here, that will work very nicely. And you can make this however you want and whatever color you want, because again, it is a fantasy flower. But even if it wasn't, the crazy things that they're doing with flowers these days as far as changing their colors genetically, it's quite amazing. So don't be afraid to play with different colors and such. Okay, so now here on this section here, we're gonna add this piece, and this is gonna go on centered with a nice border all the way around. So let's get that process going here. And that top panel that I mentioned earlier, we're going to put that on after the structure is actually assembled and just make it a lot easier. Okay, so just go around, and we have a total of 6 of these. Just go nice and easy with the glue. Less is more, so you don't have to sit around waiting for the glue to set, and then also risk getting it all over your project. I know a lot of these glues claim that they dry clear, but it's not completely true because they tend to leave a glossy sheen on things, and that's not the end of the world. If you're new to this and this is your first time working with 3D flowers, don't be hard on yourself. It's just like any tool that any crafter or craftsman uses. It takes a little bit of time to learn your tools and get good with them. Your glue bottle is a tool. Okay, so I would recommend finding a brand and sticking with it for as long as you possibly can. I personally have not really, I've experimented with a few glues, and I think what turns me off about changing is the lack of familiarity with, you know, the size of the bottle, how it feels, how it flows. Ultimately, I feel like they all do the same thing, you know, but again, it's a personal preference, okay? All right, so these are all in place. We're gonna take these two sections and join them together. I'm gonna grab one of these, doesn't matter which one, and we're gonna put our glue on this tab on the side. I'm gonna spread that glue out to the edge, and we'll grab the other half and line it up. I'm looking at the top here just to make sure that that is lined up. Okay, and then what you can do, you can take it and fold it over onto itself. Okay, and then that way you can actually see if in fact it is lined up accurately. I'm pressing down on the tab that has the glue. Give it a nice press. Okay, there we go. And that looks great. Then we can go ahead and close it up by applying glue to the other tab. Like so. And a quick and easy way to line that up is just to actually put this down flat like so, grab the other end and just pop it right into place. Now that's great to get it into its position initially. I always like to take it and fold it onto that segment and press down there. Take a look at the top. Everything looks nice and flush. It's almost like everything is mirrored or just sitting completely flat on top of the other half to where you don't even see it poking out, because this is a symmetrical piece. Okay, so now we have these little triangular tabs here, and we're going to take these triangular tabs and join them to this section here. It's going to kind of curve in a little bit. Okay, I'll reserve this piece for last, so we'll start here and just apply our glue right onto that triangular tab. I'm going to hit that with my finger a little bit to spread the glue out, thin it out a little bit as well. And you're going to bring that in. It's going to curve in, oh, I'd say probably about 15 degrees or so, if I had to put a number on it. And line that up with the neighboring section and press and hold. Okay. Just hold that for a few moments, give it a couple of good solid pushes. It shouldn't take more than a few seconds. If it's taking you too long, it means you're probably overdoing it on the glue, and just ease up on the glue a little bit. I do like to bring the glue out to the very edge of the tab so that this seam right here, where this connects to that, looks seamless to where there's like no gaps. It's as close as you can get to like 3D printing, I guess you could say, when it comes to the world of paper. When you have little gaps there, they create shadows. Shadows are black, and they become very visible and almost distracting. So do your best. That's all you can do, but do your best to close those gaps. Okay, let me move this out of the way. Get that going. Bring that in. Line it up. There we go. This is a very simple little box, or container, I should say. Okay, very easy on the glue again. Bring that out and bring it back in. Line it up. And there we go. Perfect. And got a couple more to go here. But definitely Go easy on the glue. I'm very impressed with all of our fans, especially in our Facebook group that post your projects. I feel like it's nice to know you guys listen to the instructions and take the tips because your projects look awesome. They're always clean, well assembled. I don't see glue shooting all over the place. Okay, so there's one final tab in there. And of course, as usual, when you start to close things up like that, it tends to get a little tight, but I'm just kind of folding it in to make room for my finger in there. And bring that back out, line it up, and press and hold. And there we go. Okay, so when this is dry, we're gonna close it up and we can put our little panel at the top, a little decorative piece. Okay, all right, so let's start off by applying glue to all of these tabs. We're gonna actually close this up in one fell swoop, as otherwise it's just a lot easier this way. Get a semi-generous amount of glue on these tabs because we are going to take and pull this glue out to the very edge. We want it to be somewhat thick so that we can spread it out and it doesn't have a chance to completely dry if we go too thin. Just like that, all the way out to the edge. And then take this lid, bring it down, and focus on lining it up with this side here, the side opposite of this where it's hinged. Okay, so just bring that down. And you may need to kind of nudge things a little bit. We got to push over here on this corner, just a tad, and make sure everything is lined up as accurately as possible. We can flip it over and press down on the rest of the surface area of the tab to help that get a hold. I'm going to go right back to the bottom here and just continue running my finger along the perimeter to make sure that this little lid is making good contact all the way around. I should not see any gaps there. And I don't, so that's perfect. Okay, I'm going to throw a little bit of glue right in the center there. We have this little piece. This is to help with making this thing a little more sturdy. It also makes it look nicer inside. Mine moved a little bit. I gotta pop that out. I didn't get it flat, and that's okay. No one's really gonna see this anyway. We just want this to be a little more sturdy. There we go. Okay, so we got that in place. Now at this point, you can do this now, you can do this later, doesn't matter. You're gonna wanna get some of your floral foam. Okay, I already have mine pre-cut. You can use the soft foam or the hard foam. I think the hard foam is a little bit better because things tend to stay in place more, but I have some soft foam. Doesn't really matter. And just cut it to size. You're gonna hot glue it in there and leave a little bit of room. I'd say got about a ½ an inch so that we can take some nice little moss and put it on top so it won't come popping out. So leave yourself about a ½ an inch from the top as far as the foam goes. So let me show you again here. Okay, so you can see the difference there. It's about a ½ an inch. Okay, I'm gonna fire up my hot glue gun so I can get my foam in there. And while I wait for that to heat up, let's put this panel on, this little decorative top part, okay? And find the folds here. Okay, it's gonna fold like that. Same thing on the other one, just find the folds. There we go, like that. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna begin by applying one of these, okay? But we're not going to, I'm not gonna apply the whole thing. I'm gonna start by applying glue to the center of one of these pieces. Doesn't matter which one you pick, okay? And we're gonna take it and apply it to one of the sides. Doesn't matter which side either. Just make sure, you can use your finger to kind of get a feel for it. Just make sure it's nice and flush with the very top of the container, the planter, whatever you want to call it. And just leave that like that. My hot glue just warmed up, so I'm gonna throw some hot glue in there. I'm gonna be somewhat generous with it. There we go. Just to, like to rub it on the surface of whatever it is so I can leave the rest of those little wispies off of the hot glue gun. There we go, just like that. Okay. And what we can do now, we'll go over here. The side here with the tab, we can glue that down. Okay, let's glue that down completely. So apply your glue to that entire section, as well as the little tab at the end, and bring it over. Again, making sure it's flush with the top of the actual container, the base of the structure. And this little tab you can just fold over and press that down. Okay, we're going to grab the other half now, and we want, since we have the tab here, we want the tab going over here on this side, on the right hand side. So you don't want two tabs joining together. You want the other tab going that way. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to start off by gluing the center into place. And you should have 3 open sections right now. So make sure that you glue the center of this little piece to the center section that's available. Again, using your finger at the top, kind of run it right along the very top and feel for that flush feel. Okay, that looks great. Now on this side here, we can take this, apply glue, and glue this all the way down, and it should terminate right on this little tab here. Again, doing the same thing, making sure that everything is nice and flush at the top. Should go quick, again, easy on the glue. All right, now here, we'll leave this one over to the side, and we'll apply glue to the section with the tab, all the way out to the very end of the tab. Bring that over, and hold that in place for a moment, and then go ahead and glue the tab down as well. There we go, and then finally, we can apply our glue to the last section, all the way to the very edge of it, and bring that over, keeping it flush at the top, or flush with the top, and there we go. Okay, so that's it for the planner, ready to go. Okay, so it's flower time, and let's just go over the various pieces. So as you can see here, these are actual leaves. We'll be using these towards the end once all the flowers are created. And I hit this with a little bit of an olive green color all the way around. Okay, so just put those off to the side. We're not going to do anything with those quite yet. You're going to have 5 of these calyx pieces. I did ink these. And if you want, and I highly recommend doing this, kind of create an assembly line. Okay, so once you have these inked, and I'll go over some basic inking here in just a minute. But these are going to go together like this. You're simply going to take and glue one full section behind or in front, doesn't matter, another section like that. Okay, so let's do that. And I would recommend just doing these all in, I guess, like I said, an assembly line. Okay, and you can actually, once you have those together, you can push them down flat to help the glue kind of get in there. Okay. So it's a very simple process to make the calyx. It's going to look like this, okay? And then take a thin dowel and place one of the sections of the calyx between your finger and the dowel, and just lift it up about 90 degrees and run the dowel through. Okay, this one here is the 2-layered one. I'm going to let that set for a little bit longer before I do that. I don't want it to come apart. Okay, it almost looks like the bottom of a strawberry. Okay, so let's do this one here. Give it a slight little bend. Okay, so you're going to repeat that process a total of 5 times. You're going to need 5 of these, 1 for each flower. Okay, next we have the stamen, and we're really not doing much to this. I didn't even ink it because I think it's kind of a waste of time, but I did take a brown marker and just kind of drew in the tips. So just take your little brown marker and color in the tips of the stamen. There, you can see the little circles there. It's probably not the best color to put this on for contrast purposes, but once I lift it up, you'll see. Okay, and the first time I did this, I actually only did it on one side, but I realized that you're probably going to see the stamen on both sides. So definitely color in both sides. Okay. can see I have that on both sides. So each of your flowers is going to require one of those. Next, we have, well, there's two portions to the flower. There's an outer portion, the larger one, and a smaller portion, okay? So the smaller section goes on first, and as you can see here, we use, what color is this? This is, I think that's AC Peach, I want to say. There's AC Peach is the name of the cardstock. And let me see, was that peach? Outer petals are, this is peach, okay? And then the inner petals are shrimp. So this is shrimp, this is peach. So on the shrimp here, I hit this with a little bit of an orange, but then on the inside, I hit it with a little bit of a light green. Okay, so take a look, and you can see that it goes from its natural color, inked, and then at the base of the petals, you can see that light green. I personally used a color called Pear Tarts. It's like a yellowish green for that. Okay, so I'll show you the inking on this one. On that one there, the outer petals, I'm using a red-orange color. This is called Morocco. I really like this color a lot. Okay, and you do want to, so that you can get the entire petal, fold this. Okay, so again, create like a little assembly line. I would start with the outer petals, fold them, grab your ink, and just very gently, I'm taking and I'm brushing the ink onto the petal, mostly onto the edge, a little bit on the surface. I'll take the neighboring petal and just kind of tuck it behind so I don't inadvertently get ink on a spot where I don't want it. And you can bring the ink in a little bit towards the inside of the petal too. Okay, and obviously you don't want to color the whole thing because that defeats the purpose, but just very gently doing this. And it's a good idea, especially if you have a new ink pad, to kind of test it and see how much ink is actually coming off. I would hate for you to dab it, get a ton of ink on there and then just spread it on there. Again, if you want it to look a little more pronounced and you want that, I guess I'm gonna call it harsher sort of ink look, then you can do that if that's, if that's the look that you're going for. Personally, I like when my inking is kind of subtle and just very like natural, I guess. A gradient is the term that I typically use, where you can see the color starting off very subtle and then getting a lot deeper towards the perimeter. Okay, I don't like it when it's the same value of ink throughout. I like it when it's a little bit softer on the inside and then gets a little more pronounced around the outside. Okay, and I'm not really pushing very hard. I'm just kind of barely scraping the surface here with my ink pad. And this is just a felt applicator. Okay, you can take a look at our go-to tools on our website or on the app, which is available on the Apple App Store as well as Google Play. I just look up Dreaming Tree and we have a whole section on the app that discusses all the little various tools that we use, and that includes the types of inks as well as this applicator. And one thing I've been meaning to do for quite some time is to actually go to my local Joann's and just buy some felt and cut it myself just to see if it's the same. Can't imagine why it wouldn't be, but I still haven't done that yet. I'm sure it would be a lot more cost effective because I tend to go through these quite a bit. Okay, so again, you can bring this ink in as far as you want. I kind of almost want a little bit more at the top, just so it's not so, it's not so pronounced. I want it to look like a natural bleed. Okay, there we go. And the last one here. Okay, So inking is optional, but highly recommended. I find myself when I look at all the projects posted in the group, on our Facebook group, when I see users that, or crafters that have inked, the projects really stand out, and it's very therapeutic. So I definitely recommend looking into it. Okay. So that is inked. You could go through all 5, get those inked, go through all 5 of these, get them inked, get everything folded, and then you can go through and get them glued. Okay, so once we have the actual flower assembled, what we want to do is we want to glue this together so that it forms a cone, but we want the texture on the inside. So on the outside of the cone is the non-inked. If you're using AC cardstock, it's the smooth side. We want the texture on the inside, okay? So we do not want it like this with the texture on the outside. We want the texture on the inside, the inked part on the inside. Okay, so let's go ahead and put some glue on this little triangular tab so we can glue it together. Okay, again, texture on the inside. You can actually take this and just fold it flat and then just glue it down like that. Okay, so that triangular tab is making contact right here, and then it'll pop out, and that's what we want it to look like. Okay, so you're going to repeat this 5 times since we have 5 flowers. You can do that in an assembly line as well. Okay, and the same concept is going to apply with the inner petal. Okay, so we want the texture on the inside like this. Okay, so it's smooth, non-inked on the outside of the cone, textured, inked inside. All right, so throw a little bit of glue on that triangular tab, and just like we did before, you can actually just pop that down flat like that, pop it out. Okay, and I'm going to say it one more time so you don't get mixed up here. Texture and ink on the inside, smooth, non-inked on the outside. Okay, so you're going to do that 5 times. And by the time you're done, you're going to have 5 stamen, 5 outer petals, 5 inner petals, and a calyx. Okay, so at this point, we can grab our floral stem. Okay, and you're going to want to fire up your hot glue gun. I think the hot glue makes this process a lot easier and a lot quicker. Get your floral tape ready as well. I'm going to pull that out, stretch it out. Don't forget to stretch out your floral tape to expose the little tacky substance that's in there. It's almost like a glue. And we're going to begin. Now what you can do to make this process a little bit easier before we actually put it on the stem, I want my texture side out on the stamen. We're going to start by putting that on. If you want to pre-roll it, you can use a very thin dowel and just roll it around the dowel all the way down, or at least just a little bit. You can just roll it a little bit, just so that we have that first little section, curled around. And what we can do, just need a little tiny bit of glue on the tip of this so that it stays in place. And just kind of spread it nice and thin. Okay, and then we're going to take the stamen and we're going to wrap it around the stem. Make sure that you get that stem all the way up as far as it'll go. Okay, and that will hold it in place. And then we can take a little bit of glue, standard glue. You can do hot glue too if you want, although I think it'll maybe make it a little too thick. So I would go with regular glue and then just continue wrapping it around. Just try to make sure that you keep the very bottom, the straight edge, in line with itself and wrap it as tight as you can all the way to the end. That glue should kind of continue squeezing out towards the end. Okay, and just hold that in place. While you're holding it, this would be a good time to take, and you can actually take and just kind of curl these every which way. Just kind of curl them towards you as you rotate it. It's okay to have a few of them standing up, straight. You can give them a slight curl if you want. And that's just to create some depth and some thickness to it so everything's not all bunched together. Okay, and I'm literally just training it up against my little dowel here like that. Okay, you can see how those all sprawl out a little bit. Okay, so we have that in place. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this piece on, and this piece is going to go, I'll show you here before we glue it. You want to leave a little bit of the stamen exposed, just a little bit. I'd say probably maybe like 1/4 of an inch. You can see in there how I have just a little bit of that base still exposed, okay? And just to keep it nice and clean, just take and glue it from the bottom so you don't end up with a bunch of hot glue on the inside. And then you can just use the tip of your hot glue nozzle to kind of spread that glue, and that should keep it in place nicely. Okay, and let's spread that out a little bit. Okay, so we're going to let that set, and because it's hot glue, it doesn't take that long. Let's get a nice thin dowel, and what I'm going to do is grab the tip of each petal and place it up against my dowel, and then just curl it back like that. Go down as far as you can. You can only go up to this part here where the two sections join, otherwise you're going to risk ripping it. Okay, so just peel that back. Okay, and this wire's kind of getting in my way here, but it's okay. We're doing that to all the petals. There we go. Just like that, and that looks great all by itself actually, even without the second layer. All right, great. So now we're going to take the next layer, slide it up the stem, and pop it in there. Now actually, you know what, before we do that, with this one, let's go ahead and curl this one back. I'm going to start at the base and just kind of bring it up about 90 degrees and run the dowel through, very gentle. Okay, and then I'm going to take a smaller dowel and I'm going to curl the tip a little bit more. Smaller dowel, grab it right at the tip like so, and just curl it back just a tiny bit. Whoops, there we go. There we go. Just to make that tip nice and pronounced, it's angling down. Nice and gentle. There we go. Okay, so now let's take this, slide it through, and I may want to, probably going to want to create a little more separation between these, so I can take and just kind of pull them down very gently. Okay, and you want to, when you put this on, you want to offset this, so you don't want the petals on top of each other. You want to rotate it a little bit so that this petal is in between these two. Okay, so just keep that in place. Get it nice and centered. There we go. And then I love this hot glue gun. It's very accurate, but it doesn't stay on long enough for my liking, which is okay because it fires up really quick. All right, so just hold that in place. Just bring it up pretty much as far as you can go. You can probably bring it down just a tad. There we go. And then we're gonna apply our glue. Whoops. We're gonna apply our glue right to the base of that. Okay. Just make sure that you're getting some glue on the actual flower and on the stamen portion so that the two bind and bond together. There we go, beautiful. Make sure it's nice and straight before it has a chance to set. Beautiful. Okay, finally, we have our calyx. We're gonna pull that up, get it almost all the way up, and then we can apply our final touch of hot glue around the base of the flower. I think that should do it. And then pop that up. Make sure that you line that up with the side. It's going to go over the base of the stamen ever so slightly. You want a little bit of that stamen exposed, like that. You can see how the stamen is still, the base of the stamen is still showing there. There we go. And there is your beautiful flower. Okay, so now all that's left to do is wrap it. I'm going to grab your floral tape, make sure you pull it out, expose that tacky, and I'm going to start a couple inches below and just start wrapping it. And as we get closer to the calyx, I'm going to wrap it at less of an angle. Right now I'm going about 45 degrees up. Now as we get about here, I'm going to lower or decrease the angle, make it almost straight, and then go up a little bit so that you're going over the calyx ever so slightly. And I'm kind of using my two fingers here to push that up against the calyx. And then once that's covered, you can work your way back down and get it nice and tight. You can kind of squeeze it as you go. And then go ahead and increase the angle, continue down, and there we go. Okay, you can go ahead and press on that a little bit, right up to the calyx, and then wrap the rest of the stem. Now you can increase the angle, make sure you pull that out, and there we go. Okay. Go ahead and wrap the rest of the stem all the way down to keep everything nice and consistent looking. So I'm kind of guiding the floral tape with this hand, and as I go down, I'm pushing down on it to flatten it out a little bit so that it adheres to the stem. Okay, you can probably stop right about there, depending on the length of your stem, obviously. I think that's fine. Okay, so there's our beautiful flower. Okay, you can see here, nice and consistent. And you're going to repeat that 5 times until you have all 5 beautiful flowers created. Those look stunning. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to trim these, and I'm going to give you some lengths to help you get the arrangement looking nice and pretty. So I have a series of lengths here that I wrote down. What I'm going to do is, and let me move this so you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully I don't destroy anything in the process here. I might have to angle it this way. There we go. Okay, so just place your flower on or near, next to, on top of your mat or a ruler. Just get the actual flower part at your 0 marker. And the first one we're going to cut at about 10 inches. Okay, so just go ahead and cut that at about 10 inches. Okay, grab your next one, do the same thing, put it on your mat. We're going to cut the next one at about 8 inches. Okay, grab the next one, pop it on your mat, make sure it's straight. Okay, we're going to go about 6.5. Maybe leave a little extra for good measure. Okay, next one is going to be 6 inches. And let's go a little more. And the last one's going to be at about 5.5. Okay, so right about there. Those things are flying like bullets. All right, so we have all of our flowers, and we're just going to join them all together. I would keep the longest one in the center, and then grab the rest of them and just kind of bunch them together. If you need to, you can kind of bend them out a little bit so it's kind of straight from the bottom, and then as it gets closer to the top, just kind of bend it out a little bit so they're not right on top of each other. And we're basically kind of creating the arrangement in our hands before we wrap it. Okay, so this one is going to have a little bit of a curve towards the top. Good time to clean off any of those little wispies that you have left over from the hot glue. Okay, and let's go, the second longest one I'm going to put towards the back, and I'm going to curl that out this way. And again, we're going to finesse this and really clean it up later on. Okay, and then we've got, let's put the short one over on this side. That looks good there. And then this one's gonna go here. And just keep them all, I'm gonna bend this one out to the left. Okay, and there's your beautiful little bouquet. Okay, I think that maybe, let's see here. I wanna just try to keep them somewhat, you don't want too much space between the flowers. So you see here, we've got a nice little grouping here at the bottom. There's one a little bit taller towards the back. And then this one here is a little bit taller, but we don't want it too tall. You don't want it to look like that. That's just obviously, the spacing is obviously off. So I'll bring this down a little bit until it looks just about right. And I think that's a great little grouping. Maybe this one could go up a little bit higher. And you can always take and bend these a little bit too. Okay, so I'm happy with that. And this is what it ends up looking like here at the base. Okay, so I can technically take and I'm gonna trim off a little bit more on this one. Actually, you know what, I'm gonna leave it, it's fine, because it's gonna go in to the foam and it'll be fine. Okay, so figure out how you want your grouping. I think that looks lovely. And I'm gonna begin taping all of these together. Okay, so it may be a little challenging at first. And actually, let me trim this off real quick here. It's kind of, okay. And just start wrapping it. Try to keep it somewhat together. Let me see here. This guy's gonna be in the front. This guy's gonna be here. This one's gonna be here. This one's gonna be going back. Perfect, okay. And then just start wrapping them all together. As soon as you get it around a couple times, it really shouldn't budge anymore. Just gonna continue wrapping it all the way down to the base. I don't know why it keeps doing that. I should probably just twist the flowers. And then I'm gonna go back up one more time. Just get it nice and secured. Let's go up a little bit more. And then maybe down one more time. There we go. Okay, so the flowers are all together. And you can rip that off. And now it's just time to put some leaves in place. Okay, so what we can do, we can actually just pop this into our little planter to get a feel for how it's going to look ultimately. And you can see that that looks great. I'm gonna bring that down even more. That looks just about right. You can see from this camera how nice that looks, okay? And at this point, you can just go kind of crazy with the leaves here. What we're gonna do is give these a little bit of training. So I'm gonna grab a somewhat thicker dowel here and can hold it at the base. Just place the leaf between your finger and the dowel and bring, I'm actually gonna start, I want it to stand up a little bit and then bend. So you don't wanna train it from down here, otherwise it's gonna droop all the way from the bottom. You'll notice that this thing has a series of little score marks. I would actually start just above the score mark on each of these, bring it up about 90 degrees, and then run your dowel through. And you can see what happens there. Okay, so let's repeat that for all of these, like that. There we go. Same thing here. And if you want, you can even take and kind of curl that even more, so it gives you that sort of effect. Okay. And this one's a little more droopy. This is where you can put a little bit of yourself into your project. There we go. And one more. There we go. And the idea here is to kind of, well, separate these out enough to make this thing look nice and full. Okay. Okay, so what I would do also is take these and kind of separate them out by size. Like that's the smallest one. That one's getting a little bit smaller. This one's smallest. Next, well, here we go. Kind of like that. And the longest one's going to be right there. You can see how I've got them separated out. I'm going to put the smallest ones on last, okay, because we want to kind of stagger them a little bit so that we don't have them all on one plane. We want to kind of stagger them a little bit. So I'm going to start with the tallest ones first. And this guy here, I'm going to bring him up. I'm going to untrain this a little bit. It's maybe a little too much, and you can totally do that. I'm going to bring him about here. Okay, I think that looks good. Right about there, and we're just going to wrap that. We'll do one at a time here. By the way, you'll notice these score marks here, if you want to help you kind of hug the stem, you can fold this a little bit. I think that will kind of naturally happen on its own anyway. Okay, so I'm going to put this one here. And let's get that wrapped. Just press it up against the stem and just wrap it a few times. Make sure it's nice and standing up. There we go. And if you want, you can go back up a second time for good measure. Make sure it's not going anywhere. Okay, so there's one. And as I'm going through this, I'm going to start shaping these and pulling these out a little bit, creating a tiny bit more separation. We want them mostly bunched together, but it doesn't hurt to make it a little more full looking. Okay, I'm starting to think that maybe that one might be, let's take a look here. There we go. I think that looks great. Okay, so I'm going to grab the next largest one here, and I'm going to bring this up a tiny bit. And I'm going to put him right here. So I'm going here, then I'm going about 45 degrees, and I'm putting the next one there, and ultimately we'll go down a level. And actually you can bring this down a tiny bit. So we're working in 3 dimensions here. Okay, just wrap that around the stem. Pull that down a little more. And just wrap that around. Just like we did the first one. It's going to be nice and thick at the base. Okay, there we go. And again, we can always train this more or less depending on how we're feeling and what we're doing. Okay, so the next one here, I'm bringing it down a little bit, and I'm also offsetting it about 45 degrees. So you can see it's almost creating like a little tripod effect. Okay. And let's go pull that tape out. Make sure you stretch it out, reveal that tacky. Okay, there we go. And just wrap that around. Beautiful. Okay, the next smallest one I'm going to put right here. So I'm going to put it in between this one and this one, right about here, going just a tiny bit lower. Okay, just like that. Just a little bit lower, maybe bring that up a tiny bit. And just press that up against the stem. And let's go ahead and wrap that. And ultimately, you know, these are the little leaf parts are going to be, they're going to give the illusion of coming out of the ground. Okay. All right. So the next smallest one, let's go ahead and offset that a little bit here. Put it about here. Just bring it down a notch compared to the other one. You can almost have it at the same level. That's fine. You can see the height on that and the height on that. I think that looks good. Maybe bring it down just a notch. Pull that tape out, and let's get that wrapped. go. And the last one, again, find that spot. I'm going to put it here. I'm looking at it from what I'm going to call the front. Okay, this is the front, and I notice that there's a little bit of negative space here. So I'm going to put it right here. And I think that's going to fill it in nicely. Okay, so press that up against the stem. And let's wrap it. So I'm putting the tape over it a little bit, gripping it with this finger, holding it in place, and then I'll begin wrapping. I'm going to bring this up a tiny bit, and then bring it back down. Okay, there we go. And that's pretty much it. Okay, and that looks beautiful. So what I'm going to do here is I feel like I could bring this down a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll bend it back and then just bend this down a little bit. And that will it'll make the grouping a little more bunched together. Okay, and let's take a look and see what that looks like once we pop it in. Perfect. Okay, so you see here, these little leaves are just barely sticking out here. Once we fill this in with moss, which I'm going to do here in just a second, it'll look really nice. Okay, so I'm going to pop this out real quick. And let's grab some of our moss. You can use any kind of moss you want. Reindeer moss might look good. This is Spanish moss. And just kind of fill it in. I think what I'm going to do is I need to cut some of this because I want to get some into these little crevices. Don't push too hard. You don't want to rip it. Just give it a little bit into any little gaps you have here. Just pop it in there. And that'll kind of help the whole bunch stay in place. What I'll do too, because it's kind of wacky and wild right now, is once I get it in there, I can always take some scissors and just trim off any of the little wispies that are kind of hanging out and looking obnoxious. Like this. Just trim that off. It's almost like you're giving it a haircut. Don't cut your paper on accident. Okay. Pop that in there. Stuff is messy, but it's okay. This is the fun part. Once we get everything all nice and done. And for the most part, once you put your flowers in there, it'll keep the moss in place, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Okay, there we go. And you want to kind of mound it a little bit, just like that. Make sure everything looks nice and straight. Give her a little haircut here. This Spanish moss is definitely a little more puffy. The reindeer moss, I think, is a little bit easier to shape and form since it's not as thick and lush. Let me cut some of that off. There we go. Okay, and the hole's already there, so this should go in nice and easy. Make sure you got it nice and straight. And don't leave too much room. You don't want a huge gap between the moss and the leaves. You don't want it to be sticking out too much. You want everything to be nice and compact, okay? But I think that's gonna do it. Obviously, there's the little diamonds that you have on this design. You can throw some little rhinestones or some pearls on there. I think that would look nice. And that's pretty much it. What a beautiful, beautiful little centerpiece. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please visit our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell so you get notifications anytime we release a new product, whether it be paid or free. And if you make this or anything from our latest bundle, I would love to see it, and so would the rest of our community. So head over to your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Official. You can join myself and over 40,000 dreamers that inspire us daily. So I hope you had a great time making this beautiful centerpiece, and as always, I look forward to crafting with you again.
Hey, thanks for crafting along with me. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check out some of our other videos, and also please consider hitting that subscribe button. And don't forget to visit our site and check out our free SVG section, where we have over 140 free SVG files complete with assembly videos. I look forward to crafting with you soon.